The surveillance footage played on repeat in the dimly lit briefing room. Marcus Chen watched for the 15th time as the Zephyrian war cruiser descended upon the remote mining colony of Kepler 442b. The alien vessel, sleek and predatory like a metallic shark, hovered over the small settlement of 300 souls. What happened next would change everything between humanity and the galactic community. The Chen family had been running a legitimate mining operation on the outer rim, far from the political machinations of the core worlds. David Chen, his wife Sarah, and their twin daughters Maya and Luna lived quietly, extracting rare Earth elements that kept human colonies functioning across known space. They bothered no one, threatened no one, and posed no challenge to anyone's authority. The Zephyrian Empire had different ideas about territorial boundaries. Marcus watched his brother's family die again. The energy beams from the alien ship turned their modest home into molten slag within seconds. David had tried to shield his daughters. Sarah had attempted to reach the emergency beacon. None of it mattered. The Zephyrians didn't distinguish between combatants and civilians. They saw only humans trespassing on what they claimed as their space. "Turn it off," Marcus finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Rebecca Torres, head of Earth's Special Operations Division, paused the recording. The room fell silent except for the steady hum of the station's life support systems. Around the conference table sat the most dangerous people in human space, each one handpicked for operations that officially didn't exist. "The Galactic Council has refused to investigate," Torres began, her weathered face showing no emotion. "They claim the Kepler system falls within disputed territory, making this an internal matter for the Zephyrian Empire to handle. Our diplomatic protests have been filed away and forgotten." Marcus stared at the frozen image on the screen. His brother's face, caught in the moment before the blast, showed determination even in death. David had always been the peaceful one, the one who believed in negotiation and compromise. Marcus had chosen a different path long ago. "What about economic sanctions?" asked Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the team's xenobiologist and cultural expert. Her expertise in alien psychology had made previous missions possible. "The Zephyrians control too much of the hyperlane network," Torres replied. "Any serious economic pressure would hurt us more than them. Besides, Prince Zalex personally ordered the strike. He's third in line for the throne and commands significant military forces. The royal family won't surrender one of their own for what they consider a minor border incident." The word minor hung in the air like a physical presence. 4 human lives reduced to a footnote in galactic politics. Marcus felt the familiar cold settling over him, the same detachment that had carried him through 2 decades of wet work across the galaxy. "There is another option," Torres continued, sliding a datapad across the table to Marcus. "Unofficial, of course. The kind of operation that requires plausible deniability from Earth Command." Marcus picked up the pad and scrolled through the intelligence briefings. Prince Zalex would be attending the centennial celebration on the Zephyrian homeworld of Nexus Prime. The entire royal family would gather for 2 weeks of ceremonies, parades, and political maneuvering. Security would be extensive but focused on preventing large-scale attacks and political assassination attempts. "You want me to kill a prince during the most heavily guarded event in Zephyrian history?" Marcus said, setting down the pad. "I want you to send a message," Torres corrected, "that human lives matter, that there are consequences for murdering our people. The Galactic Council speaks in terms of trade agreements and territorial disputes. We need to remind them that humanity has teeth." Marcus looked around the table at his potential team. Dr. Hayes would provide intelligence on Zephyrian culture and customs. Tech specialist Ramon Silva could handle electronic warfare and surveillance systems. Demolitions expert Yuki Tanaka specialized in making loud statements that couldn't be ignored. But this mission would require something different. "Something more intimate. I'll need a partner," Marcus said. "Someone who can move in royal circles without raising suspicion." The Zephyrians value bonded pairs in their culture. A couple would have access to social events that a lone operative couldn't reach. Torres nodded. "Agent Valentina Kozlov has been briefed and volunteered for the assignment. She's fluent in Zephyrian dialects and has experience with deep cover operations in alien societies." Marcus knew Kozlov by reputation, former Russian intelligence, recruited by Earth's Special Operations after the Moscow incident. She was brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely lethal when circumstances required it. More importantly, she understood the cost of losing family to political violence. The mission parameters are simple, Torres continued. Infiltrate the Centennial Celebration. Eliminate Prince Zalex and any other royal family members you can reach. Make it clear that this is retaliation for Kepler 442b. Then disappear before Zephyrian security can respond. Dr. Hayes leaned forward. You're talking about starting a war. The Zephyrian Empire has 3 times our military strength. The war already started when they killed civilians, Marcus replied, his voice flat and professional. We're just making sure they understand they chose the wrong species to terrorize. Torres activated another screen, showing detailed schematics of the royal palace on Nexus Prime. The fortress-like structure sprawled across several square kilometers, its crystalline spires reaching toward the alien sky. Traditional Zephyrian architecture emphasized flowing curves and organic shapes, but the palace incorporated enough defensive measures to withstand a full military assault. Your cover identities are being prepared, Torres said. Marcus Chen becomes Marcus Cross, an independent trader specializing in rare artifacts. Valentina Kozlov becomes your bonded partner, an art dealer with connections to several minor noble houses. The invitation to the celebration comes through legitimate channels, purchased with enough credits to seem authentic. Marcus studied the palace layouts, memorizing guard rotations and security checkpoints. The Zephyrians might be militarily superior, but they had grown complacent. Their empire stretched across dozens of star systems, and internal threats had been eliminated generations ago. They wouldn't expect 2 humans to penetrate the heart of their government. Time frame? Marcus asked. 3 weeks to reach Nexus Prime and establish your cover. 2 weeks during the celebration to locate and eliminate targets. Extraction is your responsibility, but we'll have a ship waiting at the edge of the system. Marcus looked at the frozen image of his brother's family one more time. David would have argued for a peaceful solution, would have believed that justice could be found through proper channels. But David was dead along with Sarah and the twins. When do we leave? Marcus asked. Torres smiled grimly. Agent Kozlov is waiting in briefing room 7. Get acquainted. Your transport departs in 18 hours. As the meeting dispersed, Marcus remained seated staring at the tactical displays. The mission would likely be suicide. Even if they succeeded in eliminating Prince Zalex, escaping from Nexus Prime would require luck and skill in equal measure. But his brother's family deserved justice, and if the Galactic Council wouldn't provide it, humanity would deliver its own version. The Zephyrians had killed the wrong humans. Now they would learn why Earth's Special Operations Division existed, and why humanity had earned its reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous species when properly motivated. Marcus stood and walked toward briefing room 7. It was time to meet his partner and begin planning the most audacious assassination in galactic history. Valentina Kozlov stood with her back to the door when Marcus entered briefing room 7, studying holographic displays of Zephyrian social customs. She was smaller than he'd expected, perhaps 5.5 feet tall, with short platinum blonde hair and the kind of unremarkable features that allowed someone to blend into any crowd. When she turned to face him, her gray eyes held the same coldness he'd seen in his own mirror for years. Marcus Cross, she said in accented English, extending her hand. I've read your file. Impressive body count. Valentina Kozlov, he replied, shaking her hand and noting the calluses that spoke of weapons training. Same to you, though I hear you prefer more creative methods. She smiled, the expression not reaching her eyes. The Moscow incident required creativity. 3 Andromedan diplomats dead from apparent food poisoning at a state dinner. Nobody could prove the dessert course had been modified with compounds that react fatally to their biology. Marcus nodded approvingly. Kozlov's reputation preceded her, but seeing her in person confirmed his suspicions. She was exactly what this mission required, someone who could kill without hesitation while maintaining perfect composure in social situations. Tell me about your family, Valentina said, settling into a chair across from him. The question caught him off guard. My family? Your brother and his children who died on Kepler 442b. If we're going to pose as bonded partners, I need to understand what drives you. Grief makes people unpredictable, and unpredictable gets us both killed. Marcus considered deflecting, maintaining operational distance. But Valentina was right. Their cover required intimate knowledge of each other's psychology. David was 8 years younger, Marcus began. Always the optimist, always believed people could work together despite their differences. He met Sarah during university, and they decided to start fresh on the Rim worlds. Thought they could build something better than what Earth offered. And the children? Maya and Luna were 6 years old. Twins, but completely different personalities. Maya wanted to be an engineer like her father. Luna preferred painting and music. Marcus paused, remembering the last video message David had sent. The girls arguing over who got to show Uncle Marcus their latest school projects. They died because Prince Zalex decided humans didn't belong in that system. Valentina leaned back, studying his face. Good. Controlled anger is useful. Rage would get us killed. But controlled anger can sustain us through whatever we'll need to do on Nexus Prime. She activated the holographic display, showing detailed cultural information about Zephyrian bonding rituals. The aliens maintained strict social hierarchies based on family units, with bonded pairs representing the fundamental building block of their society. Zephyrians mate for life, Valentina explained. Their bonding ceremonies involve complex chemical exchanges that create permanent physiological connections. They can literally sense each other's emotional states. We'll need to fake that level of intimacy convincingly. Marcus studied the information, noting the intricate social dances and public displays of affection expected from bonded pairs. How do we simulate biochemical bonding? We don't. We create the appearance of bonding through behavioral cues they'll recognize. Valentina stood and moved closer to him, close enough that he could smell her subtle perfume. Like this. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing along his jaw in a gesture that appeared tender, but felt coldly professional. Zephyrians communicate affection through touch patterns that activate their chemical receptors. Humans don't have the same biology, but we can mimic the behaviors. Marcus found himself studying the curve of her neck, the way her hair caught the room's artificial lighting. If he was going to sell this cover, he needed to think of Valentina as his bonded partner, not just another operative. "What's your real motivation for this mission?" he asked. "Professional curiosity," she replied, stepping back but maintaining eye contact, "and the fact that the Zephyrians represent everything wrong with the Galactic Council's approach to interspecies relations. They believe might makes right, that smaller species exist only to serve their interests. That's not personal enough. Torres wouldn't have assigned you without a deeper connection." Valentina's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "My younger sister was killed during the Proxima incident 3 years ago. Zephyrian peacekeepers opened fire on civilian protesters who opposed their mining operations. Elena was a journalist covering the story." Marcus nodded. "They both carried the weight of family members murdered by Zephyrian arrogance. That shared pain would make their partnership more authentic and more dangerous." "Show me the target profiles," Marcus said. Valentina activated new displays showing detailed intelligence on the Zephyrian royal family. Prince Zalex appeared as an imposing figure, nearly 7 feet tall, with the characteristic blue-scaled skin and predatory features of his species. His eyes held the casual cruelty of someone who had never faced meaningful consequences for his actions. Zalex commands the Third Fleet and has personally overseen 14 territorial enforcement actions in the past 5 years, Valentina read from the files. Each action resulted in civilian casualties among non-Zephyrian species. He's considered a rising star within the military hierarchy. Who else will be at the celebration? Emperor Thais and Empress Vyala, the ruling pair. Crown Prince Daimon and his bonded mate, Princess Sayla. Prince Kovar, second in line, with his 3 offspring, plus approximately 40 members of the extended royal family and their retainers. Marcus studied the organizational charts, noting family connections and political alliances. The Zephyrian Empire's power structure depended heavily on blood relationships and traditional hierarchies. Eliminating key members would create chaos that could last for generations. "Our primary target is Zalex," Marcus said, "but if we can reach others, we take them," Valentina finished. "The more royal blood we spill, the stronger the message becomes." They spent the next several hours reviewing architectural plans of the royal palace and security protocols for the centennial celebration. The Zephyrians would employ both technological surveillance and traditional guards, but their focus would be on preventing large-scale attacks rather than identifying individual threats. The celebration includes 7 major events, Valentina explained, highlighting different sections of the palace. Opening ceremonies in the Grand Amphitheater, 3 formal banquets in the Crystal Hall, traditional combat demonstrations in the Arena of Honor, cultural exhibitions in the Gallery of Worlds, and the final coronation renewal ceremony in the Throne Chamber. Which events will Zalex attend? All of them. As third in line for the throne, his presence is required at every major function. But he'll be most vulnerable during the cultural exhibitions. Security will be lighter, and the crowds will provide cover for movement and escape. Marcus memorized the timing and locations, already forming preliminary plans. The mission would require multiple contingencies and perfect timing. They would have perhaps minutes to eliminate their targets before Zephyrian security responded with overwhelming force. "What about weapons?" Marcus asked. Valentina smiled, the expression genuinely amused for the first time. Zephyrian culture prizes traditional combat methods. Blade weapons are considered ceremonial accessories and won't trigger security scanners. We'll carry ornamental daggers that are actually monofilament blades capable of cutting through their scaled hide. And for larger statements, I've designed several compounds that appear to be standard cosmetics but combine to create powerful explosives, enough to collapse sections of the palace if needed. Marcus found himself impressed despite his professional reserve. Valentina had clearly spent considerable time preparing for this mission, anticipating problems he hadn't yet considered. "There's one more thing," Valentina said, her tone becoming serious. "Once we begin killing members of the royal family, we become the most wanted criminals in Zephyrian space. There will be no mercy, no capture, no negotiations. They will hunt us across the galaxy if necessary." "Good," Marcus replied. "Let them come. After what they did to my brother's family, I want them angry. I want them to understand that humanity doesn't forgive and doesn't forget." Valentina nodded approvingly. "Then we understand each other. Tomorrow we begin intensive cultural training. You'll need to master Zephyrian social customs well enough to fool beings who've grown up in that society." As Marcus left the briefing room, he felt the familiar anticipation that preceded dangerous missions. The next few weeks would test every skill he'd developed during 20 years of covert operations. But somewhere in the depths of space, Prince Zalex was enjoying his last days of believing that human lives were expendable. That belief was about to cost him everything. The journey to Nexus Prime took 18 days aboard the merchant vessel Wandering Star, a deliberately unremarkable cargo hauler that specialized in carrying luxury goods to wealthy clients across the galaxy. Marcus and Valentina spent every waking hour refining their cover identities and practicing the subtle behaviors that would convince Zephyrian observers they were genuinely bonded partners. "Your posture is wrong," Valentina said as they rehearsed in their shared cabin. Bonded Zephyrians unconsciously mirror each other's movements. "When I shift my weight to the left foot, you should do the same within 3 seconds." Marcus adjusted his stance, watching Valentina's reflection in the cabin's mirror. After 2 weeks of intensive training, they moved together with an almost telepathic synchronization that would have impressed actual Zephyrian pairs. "Better. Now practice the greeting ritual for meeting nobility." Marcus bowed precisely 30 degrees while extending his hands palm up, the traditional gesture of respect toward higher-ranked Zephyrians. Valentina critiqued his form until the movement became automatic, muscle memory that would function even under stress. Their cabin had been transformed into a miniature intelligence center, with holographic displays showing real-time updates from Earth's spy networks throughout the Zephyrian Empire. Prince Zalex had arrived on Nexus Prime 3 days earlier, taking up residence in the east wing of the royal palace along with his personal guard unit. "New intelligence from our contacts on the surface," Valentina said, activating a secure communication channel. "Zalex has requested additional security for the cultural exhibitions. Apparently there have been threats against him from other noble families." Marcus studied the updated security protocols. "Internal Zephyrian politics. Prince Kovar's supporters believe Zalex's aggressive military actions are destabilizing the Empire. They want him removed from the succession line before he starts a war that destroys their economy. Convenient. If Zephyrian nobles are already plotting against him, our assassination might be blamed on internal enemies. Valentina nodded, updating their mission profiles. It also means security will be tighter around Zalek specifically. We may need to adjust our target priorities. Marcus had been thinking about that problem for days. Their original plan focused on eliminating Prince Zalex as the primary objective, but the mission's true purpose was sending a message about the consequences of murdering human civilians. Dead royalty would accomplish that goal regardless of which specific individuals they killed. What about Crown Prince Daimon? Marcus asked. Heavily protected and rarely appears in public without a full security detail. His death would create more political chaos, but reaching him would be nearly impossible. Princess Selah? Daimon's bonded mate, less protected than her partner, but killing her would trigger massive retaliation against all human settlements in Zephyrian space. Marcus considered their options while reviewing architectural plans of the royal palace. The massive structure contained dozens of potential targets, but only a few offered realistic opportunities for assassination and escape. We stick with Zalex as the primary target, he decided. But we identify secondary objectives among the extended royal family. Kill as many as we can reach during the confusion. Their ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system, revealing the Zephyrian homeworld in all its alien splendor. The planet's surface showed the characteristic blue-green coloration of Zephyrian vegetation, with vast crystalline cities that sparkled like jewels against the landscape. 3 small moons orbited the world, each one hosting massive orbital stations that coordinated traffic throughout the empire. Beautiful, Valentina murmured, studying the view from their cabin's porthole. Enjoy it while you can, Marcus replied. In a few days, we're going to paint it red. The Wandering Star joined a convoy of merchant vessels approaching the planet's primary spaceport. Nexus Prime's capital city, Thizera, stretched across an entire continent, its spires reaching toward the sky like organic growths. The royal palace dominated the city center, its crystalline walls designed to catch and reflect the system's twin suns. Marcus and Valentina completed their final preparations as the ship descended through the planet's atmosphere. Their luggage contained carefully crafted artifacts and art pieces that would justify their presence as dealers in luxury goods. Hidden within seemingly innocent items were the weapons and equipment they would need for the assassination. Remember, Valentina said as they prepared to disembark, from this moment forward we are Marcus and Valentina Cross, bonded partners and successful traders. We love each other deeply, we respect Zephyrian culture, and we're honored to witness the centennial celebration. Marcus took her hand, noting how naturally the gesture felt after weeks of practice. And if anyone asks about our business, we specialize in pre-war Andromedan sculptures and ancient Terran manuscripts. The spaceport's customs inspection proceeded smoothly. Zephyrian officials were more interested in preventing weapons smuggling than questioning the backgrounds of legitimate merchants. Marcus and Valentina's documentation passed every security check, their cover identities solid enough to withstand casual scrutiny. Their reserved accommodations placed them in the Crystal District, an upscale area favored by wealthy visitors to the capital. The hotel, designed to accommodate multiple species, provided rooms with adjustable atmospheric conditions and furnishings sized for different alien physiologies. First-time visitors to Nexus Prime, asked the Zephyrian concierge, her translated words carrying the characteristic musical quality of her species' language. Yes, Valentina replied in fluent Zephyrian, causing the concierge's eyes to widen with surprise. We've been looking forward to experiencing your world's culture for years. Your pronunciation is excellent. Most humans struggle with our tonal variations. My bonded partner is very dedicated to cultural studies, Marcus added, slipping his arm around Valentina's waist in the protective gesture favored by Zephyrian males. The concierge provided them with detailed information about the centennial celebration events, including a schedule of public appearances by members of the royal family. Prince Zalex would be speaking at tomorrow's opening ceremonies, followed by a reception where invited guests could meet the nobility. In their hotel room, Marcus and Valentina conducted a thorough security sweep before establishing their mission command center. The room's windows provided an excellent view of the royal palace, allowing them to observe guard rotations and traffic patterns around the target zone. The opening ceremonies will be our first opportunity to study Zalex in person, Valentina said, setting up surveillance equipment. We need to identify his behavioral patterns and security protocols before attempting any direct action. Marcus unpacked their carefully concealed weapons, examining the monofilament blades disguised as ceremonial daggers. The weapons looked like traditional Zephyrian court accessories, but could slice through alien hide and bone with minimal effort. What about the explosive compounds, disguised as makeup and skincare products? I can create enough explosive material to level half the palace if necessary. Valentina assembled the components, showing Marcus how seemingly innocent cosmetics combined to form devastating weapons. They spent the evening reviewing palace security footage obtained by Earth's intelligence networks, noting camera positions and guard post locations. The Zephyrians relied heavily on technological surveillance, but their systems had limitations that experienced operatives could exploit. There, Marcus said, pointing to a section of the palace's east wing. Blind spot in the sensor coverage. The decorative spires create interference with their scanning equipment. That's close to Prince Zalex's private quarters. If we can reach that position during the cultural exhibitions, we might be able to access his chambers directly. As Nexus Prime's twin suns set beyond the crystal spires of the capital, Marcus and Valentina finalized their assassination plans. Tomorrow would begin the most dangerous phase of their mission, infiltrating the heart of the Zephyrian Empire while surrounded by thousands of potential enemies. Any regrets? Valentina asked as they prepared for sleep. Marcus thought about his brother's family, about the surveillance footage that still played in his dreams. Only that we can't kill them all. Give it time, Valentina replied with a cold smile. This is just the beginning. Outside their window, the royal palace glowed with bioluminescent decorations celebrating the Zephyrian Empire's power and glory. Within hours, that celebration would turn into a nightmare that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. The humans had arrived on Nexus Prime, and they brought justice with them. 1,000 beings, and every seat was filled for the opening ceremonies of the centennial celebration. Marcus and Valentina occupied premium positions in the merchant section, close enough to observe the royal platform while maintaining perfect cover as wealthy traders honoring Zephyrian culture. Emperor Thais dominated the central dais, his massive form draped in ceremonial robes that sparkled with embedded crystals. The Zephyrian ruler stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled hide bearing the deep blue coloration that marked the highest noble bloodlines. Beside him, Empress Viola appeared smaller but no less imposing, her golden eyes scanning the crowd with predatory intelligence. There, Valentina whispered, her lips barely moving as she pointed with subtle hand gestures. Prince Zalex, third position from the left. Marcus studied their primary target through binocular lenses disguised as ceremonial viewing devices. Prince Zalex looked exactly like his intelligence photos. Tall, powerfully built, with the casual arrogance of someone who had never faced meaningful opposition. His military uniform displayed ribbons and decorations from his various territorial enforcement campaigns, including the action that had killed David Chen's family. 6 bodyguards in powered armor, Marcus noted, counting the security personnel positioned around the royal platform, plus another 12 in civilian clothes scattered throughout the crowd. Standard protection for a third-tier royal. We faced worse odds. The ceremony began with traditional Zephyrian war chants, the alien voices creating harmonies that resonated through the amphitheater's crystal acoustics. Marcus found the music surprisingly beautiful, which made what he was planning to do feel more justified. These beings were capable of creating art and culture, but they chose to use their abilities for conquest and murder. Prince Zalex stepped forward to address the gathered crowd, his amplified voice carrying clearly across the vast space. He spoke of Zephyrian glory, of the Empire's destiny to bring order to chaotic regions of the galaxy, of the necessity of removing obstacles to galactic peace. The recent action in the Kepler system demonstrates our commitment to stability, Zalex declared. His words translated into dozens of languages for the diverse audience. Unauthorized settlements that threaten established boundaries cannot be tolerated. The Zephyrian Empire will always act decisively to preserve order. Marcus felt Valentina's hand tighten on his arm. Around them, Alien diplomats and merchants nodded approvingly at the prince's words. To them, the murder of a human family was nothing more than a minor police action, barely worth mentioning in the context of galactic politics. He's proud of it, Valentina said, her voice barely audible even to Marcus. He actually enjoys killing civilians. Good. That will make this easier. The ceremony continued for another 2 hours, featuring displays of Zephyrian military might and cultural achievements. Holographic projections showed the Empire's expansion across dozens of star systems, each conquest marked as a victory for civilization over barbarism. The presentation made no distinction between military targets and civilian populations, treating all resistance as equally illegitimate. When the ceremonies concluded, the royal family retired to private chambers while invited guests moved to reception areas throughout the palace complex. Marcus and Valentina followed the merchant delegation toward the Crystal Hall, where Prince Zalex would make a personal appearance to meet with successful traders and cultural ambassadors. Security checkpoint ahead, Valentina murmured as they approached the palace entrance. Zephyrian guards operated scanning devices that could detect most conventional weapons, but their technology wasn't calibrated for the exotic materials used in Earth's newest spy gear. The monofilament blades disguised as ceremonial daggers passed inspection without triggering any alerts. The Crystal Hall lived up to its name, with walls constructed from translucent minerals that caught and amplified the light from bioluminescent decorations. Hundreds of guests mingled throughout the vast space, their conversations creating a multilingual buzz that challenged even advanced translation software. Prince Zalex will arrive in 20 minutes, announced a protocol officer. All merchants wishing to present gifts or proposals should prepare their materials for inspection. Marcus and Valentina positioned themselves near the hall's eastern entrance, where intelligence reports indicated the prince would make his entrance. Their cover as art dealers gave them legitimate reasons to approach royal family members, and their carefully prepared gifts would provide opportunities for close contact. Remember the cultural protocols, Valentina said, adjusting Marcus's formal jacket. Bow precisely 30 degrees, maintain eye contact for no more than 3 seconds, and present gifts with both hands extended. And if the opportunity presents itself. The monofilament blade goes between the 3rd and 4th ribs, angled upward toward the heart. Zephyrian anatomy places their primary circulatory organ slightly higher than human positioning. A commotion near the main entrance announced Prince Zalex's arrival. The crowd parted respectfully as the prince entered with his full security detail, his imposing figure immediately commanding attention. Marcus noted the positioning of the bodyguards, their overlapping fields of surveillance, and the subtle weapons built into their ceremonial armor. Prince Zalex moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting gifts and listening to brief presentations from various merchants and diplomats. His responses showed genuine intelligence, but Marcus could see the coldness beneath the diplomatic facade. This was a being who viewed other species as useful tools at best, obstacles to be eliminated at worst. Honored traders from Earth, the protocol officer announced as Marcus and Valentina approached the prince's position. Marcus and Valentina Cross, specialists in rare cultural artifacts. Prince Zalex turned his attention to them, his golden eyes showing mild interest. Humans. How refreshing to meet representatives of your species who appreciate proper culture. Too many of your people seem to prefer violence over civilization. We believe art transcends species boundaries, Your Highness, Valentina replied in perfect Zephyrian. Cultural exchange builds bridges that politics sometimes fails to construct. Wisely spoken. What treasures have you brought to honor our celebration? Marcus presented a carved statue representing an ancient Terran deity, its surface embedded with rare metals that created shifting patterns in the crystal hall's lighting. The piece was genuinely valuable, purchased with Earth intelligence funds to maintain their cover's authenticity. Magnificent craftsmanship, Prince Zalex said, examining the statue with obvious appreciation. The metallurgy techniques are quite sophisticated for such a primitive world. The casual insult hung in the air between them. Marcus maintained his diplomatic smile while calculating distances and angles. Prince Zalex stood less than 3 feet away, close enough for a monofilament blade to reach his heart before the bodyguards could react. But not yet. Too many witnesses, too much security, too little confusion to cover their escape. Marcus and Valentina needed the prince isolated, or at least distracted by some larger emergency, that would draw attention away from a single assassination. Your reputation for military efficiency is well known throughout human space, Marcus said, choosing his words carefully. The recent action in the Kepler system was particularly decisive. Prince Zalex's expression shifted subtly, showing genuine pride. Unauthorized settlements create instability. Swift action prevents larger conflicts that would cost many more lives. The family that died there, Valentina added, her voice perfectly controlled. Did they resist your forces? Resistance is irrelevant when territorial boundaries are violated. The message sent by their deaths will prevent future encroachments by your species. Marcus felt the familiar coldness settling over him. The same emotional detachment that had carried him through 2 decades of kills. Prince Zalex wasn't just proud of murdering civilians. He saw it as a teaching tool, a way to terrorize other humans into submission. A valuable lesson, Marcus agreed, his diplomatic mask hiding the violence building behind his eyes. The conversation continued for several more minutes, with Prince Zalex describing his military philosophy and future plans for pacifying disputed territories. Each word confirmed what Earth intelligence had suspected. The Kepler incident was just the beginning of a larger campaign to eliminate human presence from strategic star systems. Perhaps we could continue this discussion during tomorrow's cultural exhibitions, Prince Zalex suggested. I find your perspective on interspecies relations quite illuminating. We would be honored. Your Highness, Valentina replied. As the prince moved on to other guests, Marcus and Valentina retreated to a quiet corner of the hall. They had successfully made contact with their primary target and established a foundation for closer access during less secure events. He's worse than the intelligence reports indicated, Valentina said, her voice carefully neutral. Good. I was starting to wonder if killing him was worth starting a war. Now I'm certain. They spent the remainder of the reception gathering intelligence on other members of the royal family and identifying potential escape routes from the palace complex. By the time the evening ended, they had memorized the locations of 17 security cameras, mapped the positions of 40 TI, achievements of every species within the Zephyrian Empire, though Marcus noted that most displays emphasized the civilizing influence of imperial rule rather than celebrating indigenous accomplishments. The vast hall stretched across 3 levels of the palace, with crystalline walkways connecting exhibition areas dedicated to different conquered worlds. Marcus and Valentina moved through the crowds like professional art dealers, examining displays while conducting reconnaissance on their targets. Prince Zalex had arrived an hour earlier with a reduced security detail, the informal nature of the cultural event allowing for more relaxed protection protocols. Zephyrian military doctrine emphasizes overwhelming force. Prince Zalex was explaining to a group of fascinated diplomats. When dealing with primitive species, decisive action prevents prolonged conflicts that would cost more lives on both sides. The prince stood before a display commemorating the pacification of the Altair colonies, where Zephyrian forces had eliminated an entire human settlement to demonstrate imperial authority. The exhibit described the action as a necessary police operation, with no mention of the 3,000 civilians who had died in the orbital bombardment. Your Highness, Valentina approached with a respectful bow. We were hoping to discuss the acquisition of some pieces for our private collection. Prince Zalex turned his attention to them, his expression showing recognition from the previous night's reception. The human art dealers. Have you found items of interest in our gallery of worlds? The craftsmanship is extraordinary, Marcus replied, though we're particularly interested in pieces that demonstrate the evolution of artistic techniques. Under imperial guidance, it was perfectly phrased diplomatic language that appealed to Zephyrian assumptions about their cultural superiority while establishing legitimate reasons for private conversation. Prince Zalex dismissed his diplomatic audience with a gesture, allowing Marcus and Valentina to guide him toward a quieter section of the gallery. The eastern wing contains our most recent acquisitions, the prince said as they walked past displays of artifacts from recently conquered worlds, pieces that show how primitive artistic traditions can be refined through proper instruction. The eastern wing was exactly where Valentina wanted him. She had spent the morning placing explosive compounds in strategic locations throughout the area, disguised as cleaning supplies left by maintenance crews. With the right trigger signal, She could collapse the entire section while making it appear to be a structural failure caused by outdated building materials. But as they entered the eastern wing, Marcus noticed something that changed his calculations. Prince Kovar and his 3 offspring were examining displays in the same area, their security details creating overlapping fields of surveillance that would make escape much more difficult. An opportunity, Valentina murmured, her voice barely audible. Marcus agreed. Instead of killing one royal, they could eliminate multiple members of the succession line while creating maximum chaos for the imperial government. But the increased security presence would require adjustments to their escape plan. Your Highness, a young Zephyrian approached Prince Zalex with obvious excitement. I'm Siler Vex, a student of military history. Your tactical innovations in the Rigel campaign were absolutely brilliant. Prince Zalex's expression showed pleased vanity. The key was recognizing that civilian infrastructure often supports military resistance. Eliminating supply bases and communication centers reduces enemy capabilities while minimizing actual combat casualties. The orbital strikes against population centers, necessary demonstrations of imperial resolve. When primitive species see the consequences of resistance, they typically surrender without requiring further military action. Marcus listened to the conversation while studying the positions of security personnel. Prince Zalex was describing the systematic murder of civilians as a tactical innovation, proud of his efficiency in terrorizing entire populations into submission. Fascinating approach, the student continued. How do you determine which civilian targets provide maximum psychological impact? Schools and medical facilities create the strongest emotional responses, Prince Zalex explained with academic detachment. Destroying those installations demonstrates that resistance will not be tolerated at any level of society. The casual discussion of murdering children and patients solidified Marcus's resolve. This wasn't just about avenging his brother's family anymore. It was about preventing future atrocities against every human settlement in contested space. Valentina had moved closer to Prince Kovar's group, engaging his offspring in conversation about artistic techniques, while positioning herself near the explosive triggers she had hidden throughout the wing. Her timing would need to be perfect, creating enough chaos to eliminate multiple targets while providing cover for their escape. The Kepler incident was a perfect example of efficient territorial enforcement, Prince Zalex continued. 4 deaths sent a message that will prevent hundreds of future conflicts. 4 deaths, Marcus repeated, his voice carefully neutral. A mining family that refused to acknowledge imperial authority. Their elimination demonstrated the consequences of territorial violations to other human settlements in the region. Marcus felt the familiar coldness settling over him, the emotional detachment that preceded violence. Prince Zalex wasn't just proud of murdering David's family. He was using their deaths as a case study in terrorizing civilian populations. Your tactical approach seems highly effective, Marcus said. Indeed, the key is ensuring that primitive species understand the futility of resistance. When they see what happens to those who challenge imperial authority, they typically submit without requiring military action. The conversation was providing perfect justification for what Marcus was about to do. Prince Zalex had just admitted to deliberately targeting civilians, using terror tactics against non-combatants, and planning similar actions against other human settlements. Speaking of territorial enforcement, a new voice interrupted. We should discuss the upcoming operations in the Centauri region. Prince Kovar approached their group, his massive form moving with predatory grace. The second-in-line prince carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute power, his golden eyes showing interest in the conversation about military tactics. Brother? Prince Zalex acknowledged the greeting with a respectful nod. I was explaining our recent successes to these human merchants. Humans? Prince Kovar's gaze settled on Marcus and Valentina with obvious amusement. How delightfully appropriate. Your species features prominently in our expansion plans. Marcus maintained his diplomatic expression while calculating new variables. Having both princes in the same location created unprecedented opportunities but also increased the risks exponentially. Their combined security details included nearly 30 guards positioned throughout the eastern wing. We're honored by imperial attention, Valentina replied with perfect diplomatic courtesy. You should be. The Centauri operations will demonstrate advanced techniques in population management. Your species reproduces quickly enough to serve as an excellent laboratory for testing pacification methods. The casual discussion of experimenting on human populations triggered something primal in Marcus's psychology. These beings weren't just conquerors. They were sadistic scientists who viewed other species as laboratory animals for their amusement. Valentina caught his eye and made a subtle gesture toward the hidden explosive triggers. She was ready to bring down the entire eastern wing, eliminating both princes along with their security details and offspring. The action would kill dozens of beings, but it would also cripple the Zephyrian succession line for generations. The gallery's acoustics are remarkable, Valentina commented, her words carrying double meaning as she referenced the detonation signal they had established. Marcus nodded slightly, acknowledging her readiness. In 30 seconds, the eastern wing of the Gallery of Worlds would become a tomb for the Zephyrian royal family. Your appreciation for our culture is refreshing, Prince Zalek said. Most humans seem incapable of understanding sophisticated artistic expression. We find that proper education can overcome many species' limitations, Prince Kovar added. The key is providing appropriate motivation for learning. Both princes were discussing the systematic destruction of human civilization as if it were an academic exercise, their casual cruelty confirming everything Earth intelligence had suspected about Zephyrian intentions. Indeed, Marcus replied, his hand moving toward the concealed monofilament blade. Education is essential. The word education was their agreed-upon trigger phrase. In 5 seconds, Valentina would activate the explosive compounds that would collapse the eastern wing. In the chaos that followed, Marcus would eliminate any surviving royals with the monofilament weapons. 4. Marcus counted silently. 3, 2, 1. The charges detonated simultaneously throughout the eastern wing, their carefully calculated placement bringing down massive sections of crystalline ceiling and wall. The Gallery of Worlds transformed from a peaceful, cultural center into a war zone filled with screaming aliens and falling debris. Marcus drew his concealed blade as Prince Zalex turned toward the sound of destruction, the monofilament edge sliding between the aliens' ribs. Chaos reigned throughout the royal palace as emergency response teams struggled to contain the damage from the gallery explosion. Marcus and Valentina moved through service corridors, while palace security focused on rescue operations and protecting the surviving members of the royal family from what they assumed was a terrorist attack by internal dissidents. Imperial Guard units are sealing all major exits, Valentina reported, monitoring security communications through her concealed listening devices. They're implementing Protocol 7, which means shoot to kill, orders for anyone not wearing palace identification. Marcus checked their remaining equipment while navigating through maintenance, passages that their intelligence network had mapped weeks earlier. They still carried enough explosive compounds to level another section of the palace, plus the monofilament weapons that had already proven devastatingly effective against Zephyrian physiology. What's the status on Emperor Thys and Crown Prince Daimon? Both secured in the palace's central bunker, with the full Imperial Guard. Reaching them would require fighting through at least 200 elite soldiers. Marcus considered their options while studying architectural plans displayed on Valentina's portable intelligence device. The bunker was designed to withstand orbital bombardment, but it also represented a strategic trap. If they could breach its defenses, they would find the entire remaining leadership of the Zephyrian Empire concentrated in one location. Alternative targets? Princess Sayla and the extended royal family are being evacuated to the orbital defense station. We could intercept them at the spaceport, but security will be overwhelming. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the service corridor, forcing Marcus and Valentina to take cover behind industrial equipment. A squad of Imperial Guards passed their position, their powered armor gleaming with integrated weapon systems designed for close-quarters combat. Search every room, the squad leader commanded. The terrorists are still inside the palace. His Imperial Majesty wants them found and eliminated within the hour. Marcus waited until the patrol had moved beyond hearing range before activating his communication device. Control, this is Crossbow. Mission parameters have changed. We've eliminated primary target and multiple secondary objectives, but opportunities exist for expanded operations. Admiral Torres's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Understood, Crossbow. What's your assessment? Zephyrian leadership is in disarray. Current situation provides unprecedented access to high-value targets if we're willing to accept increased risk. Clarify increased risk. Marcus looked at Valentina, who nodded grimly. They both understood what expanding their mission would mean. Extraction becomes impossible. This converts from an assassination to a kamikaze operation. The communication channel remained silent for several seconds, while Earth Command considered the implications. The original mission had been designed to send a message about the consequences of murdering human civilians. An expanded operation could cripple the Zephyrian Empire's leadership structure for decades. Your call, Crossbow. Earth Command supports whatever decision you make. Marcus appreciated Torres giving them autonomy, but the choice was already made. The conversation with Prince Zalex had revealed the scope of Zephyrian plans for human territories. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about preventing genocide. We're going for the bunker, Marcus decided. If we can breach their defenses, we can eliminate Emperor Thais and Crown Prince Daimon. That would leave the Empire without clear succession and create civil war. Between the remaining noble houses, Valentina began assembling their remaining explosive compounds into a single massive charge, capable of breaching military-grade fortifications. The bunker's entrance is 3 levels down, protected by automated defense systems and at least 50 Imperial guards. Then we create a distraction that draws them away from their posts. Marcus activated his portable intelligence display, studying the palace's structural engineering specifications. The central bunker was located beneath the throne chamber, connected to the upper levels by a single heavily fortified elevator shaft. But the engineering plans showed potential weaknesses in the support systems that could be exploited. The throne room's ceremonial pillars are load-bearing structures, Marcus observed. If we collapse the chamber, it will damage the bunker's ceiling and possibly breach their defensive perimeter. That would require getting past the guards protecting the throne room. Not if we approach from below. Marcus traced maintenance passages that led to the sub-basement levels beneath the throne chamber. The service tunnels weren't designed for military defense, relying instead on their concealed nature to provide security. 2 experienced infiltrators could reach the target zone without encountering serious resistance. Brilliant, Valentina agreed. We plant charges on the primary support columns, then detonate them during the explosion. The falling debris will punch through the bunker's ceiling, and we can assault the survivors before they recover from the shock. They began moving through the maintenance system toward the palace's lower levels, avoiding patrols by timing their movements with the emergency response activities that were drawing guards away from their normal positions. The chaos from the gallery explosion was providing perfect cover for their infiltration. Contact from Orbital Command, Valentina reported, monitoring communications traffic. They're requesting permission to evacuate the royal family to off-world locations. Response from the bunker? Emperor Thais has refused evacuation. He's declared that imperial dignity requires him to remain on Nexus Prime until the terrorists are eliminated. Marcus smiled grimly. Zephyrian pride was working in their favor, keeping their primary targets within reach instead of scattering them across the star system. The Emperor's refusal to flee would cost him his life. They reached the sub-basement level and began placing explosive charges on the massive crystalline columns that supported the throne chamber. The charges were carefully positioned to create a cascade failure that would bring down the entire structure in a controlled collapse aimed at the bunker's location. Timer set for 8 minutes, Valentina reported. That gives us enough time to reach the breached bunker and eliminate any survivors. As they prepared for the final assault, Marcus thought about his brother's family and the casual way Prince Zalex had described their murders. David would have argued for a peaceful solution, would have believed that justice could be achieved through proper diplomatic channels. But David was dead, along with Sarah and the twins. The time for diplomacy had ended when Zephyrian weapons turned human children into ash. Charges armed, Marcus confirmed, activating the detonation sequence. Above them, the throne chamber contained the heart of an empire that had terrorized dozens of species across hundreds of star systems. In 8 minutes, that chamber would become a tomb for the beings who had ordered the murder of countless innocents. For David, Marcus said quietly. For all of them, Valentina replied. The countdown continued while they moved into position for the final assault. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn that humanity didn't just defend itself from aggression. When properly motivated, humans became something far more dangerous than any other species in the galaxy. They became the thing that killed monsters. 7 minutes and counting. The palace trembled as secondary explosions echoed through the upper levels, evidence that their earlier charges had created more damage than originally planned. Emergency systems struggled to contain fires and structural collapses throughout the complex, while security forces attempted to locate threats that seemed to be everywhere at once. 6 minutes. Marcus and Valentina reached the optimal position for breaching the bunker, their remaining weapons ready for close-quarters combat against whatever survivors they encountered. The monofilament blades would be particularly effective in the confined spaces of the underground facility. 5 minutes. Imperial Guard reinforcements arriving from the orbital stations. Valentina reported. Estimated time of arrival 12 minutes. They'll be too late, Marcus replied. 4 minutes. The sound of running footsteps echoed through the corridors above them as palace personnel evacuated non-essential areas. The Zephyrians had no idea that the greatest threat to their empire was counting down, directly beneath their most sacred chamber. 3 minutes. Marcus thought about all the human settlements that would be saved by eliminating the Zephyrian leadership. Children who would grow up free from the threat of orbital bombardment. Families who wouldn't die for the crime of existing in space claimed by an alien empire. 2 minutes. Ready? Valentina asked, checking her weapons one final time. Ready, Marcus confirmed. 1 minute. The charges detonated with devastating precision, bringing down the entire throne chamber in a cascade of crushing debris that punched through the bunker's defensive ceiling like a kinetic weapon from orbit. The sound was deafening, a roar of destruction that echoed throughout the palace complex. Time to finish what they had started. Time to show the galaxy what happened when humanity decided that justice required violence. Dust and debris filled the air as Marcus and Valentina descended through the massive breach their explosives had torn in the bunker's ceiling. The Imperial Guard's supposedly impregnable fortress had been reduced to a partially collapsed ruin, its advanced defensive systems shattered by tons of falling. Crystalline architecture. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the damaged facility as they moved through corridors filled with wounded guards and scattered equipment. The explosion had killed or incapacitated most of the bunker's defenders, leaving the Zephyrian Empire's leadership virtually unprotected for the first time in centuries. Emperor Thias is in the command center, Valentina reported, her scanning equipment detecting life signs through the debris. Crown Prince Daimon and Princess Selah are with him, along with approximately 12 surviving Imperial Guards. Marcus checked his remaining weapons while navigating through the destroyed bunker. The monofilament blades had proven devastatingly effective against Zephyrian physiology, but 12 guards in powered armor would require more direct methods. Explosive charges, 1 remaining shaped charge, enough to breach the command center's armored doors. After that, we rely on conventional weapons and superior tactics. They moved through the bunker's twisted corridors like death incarnate, eliminating scattered survivors who might have warned the command center of their approach. The Imperial Guards they encountered were too stunned by the collapse to mount effective resistance. Their confidence shattered along with their supposedly invulnerable fortress. Human terrorists in the bunker. A wounded guard managed to scream before Marcus's blade silenced him permanently. The warning echoed through the facility's communication system, but it was already too late. Marcus and Valentina had reached the command center's outer defenses, where the shaped charge would open their path to the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. Final charge placed, Valentina reported. Detonation in 30 seconds. Marcus positioned himself for the assault, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether their mission succeeded in crippling the Empire or merely provided it with martyrs to justify even greater atrocities against human settlements. For David's family, Marcus said, activating the detonation sequence. The explosion tore through the command center's armored entrance like tissue paper, revealing the vast chamber where Emperor Thias had attempted to coordinate the defense of his palace. The massive Zephyrian ruler stood before banks of monitoring equipment, his scaled hide reflecting the emergency lighting as he barked orders to off-world military commanders. Crown Prince Daimon and Princess Selah flanked their emperor, their expressions showing the first fear Marcus had seen on any Zephyrian face. The surviving Imperial guards raised their weapons toward the breach, but their positions were poorly coordinated after the collapse. Humans, Emperor Thys spoke with surprising calm as Marcus and Valentina entered the command center. You have made a grave error. Killing me will only result in the complete extermination of your species. Your son already planned that, Marcus replied, moving toward the Emperor with predatory purpose. Prince Zalex described his experiments on human populations in detail before I killed him. The Emperor's expression shifted to shock, then rage. Zalex is dead? Along with Prince Kovar and his offspring. Your succession line has been severed, Your Imperial Majesty. Valentina engaged the surviving guards with ruthless efficiency, her enhanced reflexes and superior tactics overwhelming their numerical advantage. The confined space of the command center worked against the guards' powered armor, while her monofilament weapons could penetrate their defensive systems with minimal effort. Crown Prince Diamond drew his ceremonial sword, a massive blade designed for both combat and symbolic authority. You dare threaten the Imperial bloodline in our own palace? I dare many things, Marcus replied, meeting the prince's charge with his own captured Zephyrian weapon. The duel that followed would have been worthy of the gladiatorial arenas that entertained Zephyrian audiences across the Empire. Crown Prince Diamond possessed the size, strength, and training of the Imperial warrior class, but Marcus carried 20 years of experience in killing beings who thought themselves superior to human capabilities. The prince's blade work was technically perfect, a display of classical Zephyrian swordsmanship that emphasized power and intimidation over efficiency. Marcus fought with the pragmatic brutality of Earth's special operations training, seeking weaknesses in his opponent's defense rather than engaging in a contest of strength. Your brother's family died because you people believe might makes right, Marcus said between exchanges, his blade work forcing the prince to give ground. Now you'll learn what happens when humans decide to be mighty. Princess Sayla attempted to escape through a secondary exit, but Valentina intercepted her with casual efficiency. The princess's death was quick and professional, another necessary step in dismantling the Imperial power structure. Marcus's duel with Crown Prince Diamond ended when the prince overcommitted to a powerful overhead strike that left his torso exposed. The monofilament blade slid between his ribs with surgical precision, finding his primary heart before his nervous system could register the fatal wound. Emperor Thys watched his son die with an expression of disbelief that slowly transformed into incandescent rage. The massive alien ruler drew his own blade, a weapon that had never been used for anything more dangerous than ceremonial functions. You have destroyed my family, the Emperor snarled. I will see your entire species burned to ash for this insult. You'll see nothing, Marcus replied, advancing on the last member of the Zephyrian royal family. The Emperor's swordwork was more ceremonial than practical, relying on intimidation rather than skill. Marcus ended the duel quickly, his blade finding the alien's throat before the Emperor could mount a serious defense. Emperor Thys collapsed with a gurgling scream that echoed through the command center's communication systems, carrying his death across the Zephyrian Empire to every military commander and government official who had participated in the systematic murder of human civilians. Imperial leadership eliminated, Valentina reported as the last surviving guards fell to her weapons. Mission objectives exceeded by substantial margins. Marcus surveyed the carnage they had created, counting the bodies of beings who had believed themselves untouchable in their crystalline fortress. The Zephyrian Empire would survive the loss of its leadership, but the civil war that followed would cripple its military capabilities for decades. Time to go, Marcus said, but both of them knew escape was impossible. The sound of approaching aircraft echoed through the destroyed bunker as Imperial Guard reinforcements arrived from the orbital stations. Hundreds of elite soldiers were descending on the palace, their orders to eliminate the terrorists who had dared to challenge Imperial authority. Any regrets? Valentina asked as they prepared for their final stand. Marcus thought about his brother's family, about the surveillance footage that had started this mission. David, Sarah, Maya, and Luna were avenged, along with thousands of other human civilians who had died to Zephyrian aggression. Only that we can't be there to watch the civil war, Marcus replied. The Imperial Guards breached the command center with overwhelming force, their weapons blazing as they attempted to capture the terrorists who had decapitated their empire. But Marcus and Valentina had saved one final surprise. a thermal charge that would deny their enemies the satisfaction of a public execution. The explosion that followed was visible from orbit, a final statement from humanity about the price of murdering human families. The message would echo across the galaxy for generations. Earth's children were protected by beings who understood that justice sometimes required the complete destruction of those who threatened the innocent. In the aftermath, as Zephyrian noble houses tore their empire apart in the succession wars that followed, human settlements across the galaxy enjoyed a period of unprecedented peace. No alien species would make the mistake of targeting human civilians for decades to come. Marcus and Valentina Cross had kept their promise. The Zephyrians had killed a human family, and humanity had sent an assassin couple to wipe out the alien royalty. The scales of justice had been balanced with imperial blood, and the galaxy would remember that humans protected their own, with a violence that made even the most militaristic species think twice about provoking Earth's wrath. The mission was complete. David's family could rest in peace, knowing that their deaths had been avenged by beings who understood that sometimes the only way to stop monsters was to become something even more dangerous. Humanity had spoken, and the universe had listened.